Shop Talk. I'm very happy that you've all joined us. It's a very special Shop Talk. It's one of our panelist spotlights and tips and tricks. So these are always one of my favorites because I can kind of relax and let everybody present. My name is Jamie Wright. I'm the SharePoint Shop Talk Community Manager. You can find us on our website at sharepointshoptalk.com. And also follow us on Twitter at SP Shop Talk, and the organizers are Arcovis, and their Twitter handle is at Arcovis New York City. We're also on Facebook, and as many of you know, there's going to be the timeline changing that's going to happen. So we are in line with those changes, and hopefully our Facebook page will start to liven up a little bit more. And then we have our groups on LinkedIn, which is SharePoint Shop Talk, and then, of course, New York Enterprise Search user group. See who might be, okay, somebody's background noise is kind of loud. You can mute yourself. So just to go over quick functionality for GoToWebinar, for those of you who are joining us for the first time, there's a panel on your right-hand side. You can open and close it by pressing the red arrow. You can view and select and test your audio in the audio module. You can submit your questions or raise your hand if you want to ask your questions online. Oops. And we ask that you please don't place this call on hold. And if you need an audio pen, raise your hand and I'll send you one. Also, you can press *6 to mute if you're on the phone, and if you're on just online, you can unmute and mute yourself by just using the module there. And remember that no question is too big or too small. Quick news. Next week's SharePoint Shop Talk is actually canceled. I will be joining Arcovis, a couple of Arcovis members at the Microsoft SharePoint Conference in Philadelphia. And we're going to share that link a little bit later for those of you who would like to attend in that area. Also, Laura Rogers will be speaking at the International SharePoint Conference in London. So if you are one of those people that are over the on the other side of the pond, you can definitely join her. She's going to be talking about information worker track, solution 1, building a travel request solution, so that's going to be fun. And bittersweet news, Chris Poteet's very busy, and he is going to step down as a regular panelist on SharePoint Shop Talk, but he has agreed to join us when he has a chance. And we are going to miss him, and at the same time, we hope to see him a lot more on Shop Talk more than less. So without further ado, we're going to introduce our panelists. Let's see, is Laura on? Oh, yes. Laura Rogers is on. I'm going to bring her up too as an organizer. But Laura, please say hello to the group and talk about yourself a little bit.
Hold on. Let me make sure my audio
I hear you, Laura. Oh.
is set up.
Laura?
Okay, hi, I'm Laura Rogers. I work, can you hear me now? Hi.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Okay, I'm Laura Rogers. I work at what was SharePoint 911 is now been bought by Rackspace, and I am the SharePoint MVP, and there are a couple of my books up there. Basically, I want to live in Birmingham, Alabama. What I do in SharePoint is just everything you can do out of the box with workflows, data view web parts, info path forms without having to write any code. So that's kind of my thing. That's about it.
We love it, and thanks for joining us. Let's see, who's next? Up next, we have Chris Poteet. So say hello to Chris.
My name is Chris Poteet. I work for Portal located on the East Coast, and specialize in experience design and stuff as well.
You were cutting in and out, but Chris works for Portal Solutions, and he specializes in user interface design. I don't know, I think your phone was cutting in and out a little bit, Chris. But we are so happy to have you on, and thanks for joining us. And Natalia, I don't think she's on today. Natalia, are you there? All right, so without further ado, we're going to have the man of the hour introduce himself. Actually, that's Paul Olenick.
Hi, everyone. Can you hear me okay? Too loud? Too soft?
You sound great, but you do have like a little humming sound.
Okay. I'll stop humming. So my name is Paul Olenick. I'm a SharePoint architect and enterprise search engineer for Arcovis, and I'm based out of New York City. I'll give some more details when we do the panelist spotlight.
All right. Thank you so much for joining us. And, of course, last but certainly not least, we have John White on the phone.
Excuse me. Yeah, it's John White. I'm up here in the Great White North, just outside of Toronto, Ontario. I'm a SharePoint architect, MVP. I'm also a SQL Server VTS for Microsoft here locally. Work for a company called Unlimited Viz. We focus in on workflow, forms, and primarily BI-based solutions.
All right, thank you so much. And as you can see there, if you check out John's blog, he has two entries that he just completed: how to get a comprehensive list of all email-enabled libraries in SharePoint, and upgrading SQL Server reporting services to 2012 in SharePoint integrated mode. So check those out if you have a chance.
Thrilling nighttime reading.
SharePoint Shop Talk is organized by Arcovis. Arcovis are SharePoint experts and search specialists, Microsoft Gold certified partners specializing in SharePoint Enterprise Search. And if you have any questions about SharePoint or search, you can email Arcovis at info@arcovis.com. So without further ado, I'm going to hand the reins over to Paul, who's going to be presenting 5 little things you can do to make a big impact on your SharePoint Search Center. So it's all yours, Paul.
Thanks, Jamise. So should I make myself the presenter, I suppose?
Yes, you can do that, yep.
Yep. And I'm going to show my PowerPoint. Can everyone see my presentation here?
Yes.
Okay, great. So as Jamise said, my name is Paul Olenick. I'm a senior SharePoint architect and enterprise search engineer for Arcovis. I am also just recently became a Microsoft VTSP. The ink is still drying on that one, and it basically means that I'm a sort of an extension of Microsoft's pre-sales technical engineer, so they can bring me in to talk to clients and be that sort of technical support as part of that pre-sales process. And the flip side is that I get some extra information about the products and things that adds value to my customers. A book that was just released, SharePoint 2010 Enterprise Architects Guidebook. I contributed a chapter on working with internally and externally. It's chapter 11. Check it out. It's a good one. But it's a great book in general. A lot of great people have contributed to it, and it'll definitely be a sort of go-to for me in general. I am a board member and a sometimes presenter at the Enterprise Search User Group here in New York City. And I'm a panelist on SharePoint Shop Talk anytime I can join. And I blog about my experiences at olenicksharepoint.wordpress.com. And you can follow me on Twitter at olenicksp. I mentioned I work for Arcovis. I'll just give you a brief introduction to Arcovis. So we're Microsoft Gold certified partners. We were founded by a handful of Microsoft SharePoint MVPs and fast certified engineers, including our own Natalia Vasquez-Enskaya, who's usually on this call. We, as a company, are also VTSPs for the Eastern region, and we do a lot of ADS type activity, architecture design sessions with customers, and give a lot of architecture guidance. And we also do some SDPS engagements, which are basically like health checks for people's SharePoint environments. A lot of our engineers have contributed to texts. Here's 2 examples of books that some of our engineers have contributed to. And we are also pretty active in the community. We founded the Enterprise Search User Group, the ISPA, and SharePoint Shop Talk. And we speak around the country whenever we can. And here's just a quick list of some of our customers. There's some familiar logos in there. And with that, I'll get down to the presentation. Jamise, if you can, keep me honest on time, because I can't actually see my clock in this view. So just give me a heads up if I'm going too long.
Sure. And my other question to you is, if I get questions while you're talking, do you want me to hold those to the end, or do you want that to?
If they seem relevant to the slide, feel free to shout them out. Otherwise, shut them down.
Okay.
So this presentation is actually a preview of a talk I'm going to be giving next week at the GR8 Technology Conference for SharePoint in Philly, and that's on Thursday, and we'll give you some more information about that. But this is sort of a scaled-down version of that talk. And so this presentation is basically born out of this. There's a lot of talk about the improved search in SharePoint 2010, and that's not marketing, that's a real empirical fact. It's a lot better. It's true enterprise search, whether you go with Fast Search for SharePoint or SharePoint 2010. It's a lot better. And you also have a lot of people talking about search-driven applications or search-based applications. There's a lot of discussion about that. And so search-based applications are what they sound like. And that's sort of at one end of the spectrum. You know, if you're talking about search is typing a keyword and getting some results, and then the other end of the spectrum is, hey, let's use it for all sorts of things as a auditing tool to drive dashboards, to monetize, to do all these things. Those are the two ends of the spectrum, but I feel like what people don't often talk about are a lot of the little things that you might do in your environment to just make your search center better. So I work daily with clients, and some of that work is search-based applications, but a lot is just creating these standard search experiences. And over time, I've developed what I call my lightweight search toolkit, and it's just a bunch of little things that I can kind of pull out to improve the user experience, or if requests come up. So what we're going to talk about is what's wrong with the out-of-the-box search experience. And then ground rules, that's basically what are the rules for a solution to be eligible for this conversation. I'm going to give some demos, or actually, in this case, I'm going to do demos at the presentation next week. I'll be mostly sticking to screenshots and explanations in this one. Extra credit, this is how you might take things even a little further, some ideas about what you may want to do in your search centers. And then I have a slide with some resources, and then we can take some questions and sort of wrap up. So what is wrong with out of the box? Before we talk about that, let's just kind of take a quick tour of the Search Center. I know a lot of you have probably seen this already, but for those of you who haven't, I just want to kind of get us all up to speed. So out of the box, with both 2010 and Fast Search for SharePoint search templates, we have what they call a refiner panel, and everybody recognizes this either from SharePoint, or it's a type of thing you see on the internet a lot these days too, in commerce sites, or if you're searching for plane tickets and stuff, and it's just a way to drill down into your results and filter on the fly. If you're using Fast Search for SharePoint, you get the benefit of PowerPoint previews, where you can actually scroll through a preview of your PowerPoint files as long as they reside within SharePoint. You can sort your results on either different ranking models or custom managed properties. And we also have an area where you can federate searches. So I think in this case, it looks like somebody did a search for marketing, and that search is federated here out to Bing. It was also federated to our people search, and then SharePoint shows a list of related searches as well. We also have something called Visual Best Bets, which is basically some content that you can attach to a keyword. So in this case, they attached it to ERP keyword, and you can basically just display this information at the top of your search results. And the couple of cool things about it is that it can be almost any type of content. It could be dynamic. It could be a Silverlight application. You could be running, JavaScript in there, whatever you want. And you can also set timers for it. So you can say, hey, I want this to show up if somebody does this search for ERP from October 1st to October 31st. And we can also scope it just to our sales staff if we want to do something like that. And also there's another just view of the document thumbnails that you get. And then here's just a picture of people search. So this is just out of the box as well. And this is being pulled from our SharePoint user profiles. So that's a pretty cool experience and certainly much improved from 2007. So what is wrong with the out-of-the-box search? The shorter answer is nothing's wrong with it. And if it suits your company's needs, I would not encourage you to necessarily take on anything that you're not ready to do. The more nuanced answer is you can get away with out-of-the-box, but there are some gaps. And if you have some advanced search users or really just kind of observant people, you may notice those gaps, and you're probably going to be looking to fill those gaps. The other thing is search can be so much more, and this is a little bit out of scope for this conversation, but this gets more into the search-based application. So search can be more than a keyword and a bunch of results. You can use it to do all sorts of things and pull your data out of silos, relate information, again, use it as a diagnostic tool, all sorts of things. And then here's just a little bit of reality is that in all my time setting these up, and I've done it for dozens of customers, I've never done anything completely out of the box, and that's definitely nothing that I pushed. It just there's always going to be, it seems that there's always something that the customer wants, even in a very basic implementation that does not come right out of the box. So here are the ground rules. So this was my sort of the limitations I put on which types of solutions I could include in this talk. So one is that they're lightweight and they're low risk. So that means nothing in here is going to put any kind of strain on your SharePoint environment. Nothing's going to bring down a server. It's all very lightweight and low risk, right? And I guess part of that is that no managed code, and that means there's no .NET code, no DLLs, none of that type of customization. And again, I have no problem with managed code, and it's definitely required and useful in many, many cases. But just for the purposes of this talk, I'm excluding anything with managed code. And by the way, this is kind of a fun exercise to go through sometimes because I'd say maybe about 30% of the time with customers, I'm not allowed to put any DLLs on the server anyway. So maybe they have very tight governance, or maybe we could do it, but it would, because of their governance, it would blow out the schedule by 3 weeks because of all the governance and processes they have in place. The other is that it needs to be easy to create and to implement. So easy is a really relative word, right? So when I say it's easy, it's going to be easy for somebody who has a functional familiarity with HTML, XSLT, JavaScript, and CSS, and really just needs high-level functional familiarity. You don't need to be a client-side scripting rock star, and I'm certainly not. Also, all of these work both for SharePoint 2010 search or fast search for SharePoint. And the last is that all of these have been deployed in production somewhere. So these are all things that I've used in the real world and have been tested. So the solutions also fall into 3 buckets. We have problem solvers, so those are kind of filling those gaps that I talked about before with the out-of-the-box templates. We have frequent requests. It's obvious. It's just something that I get asked to provide a lot. And the last is sort of real enhancements above and beyond the search templates that come out of the box. And with that, let's take a look at some of the solutions. You guys like the pictures of the baby? I have babies on the brain. So,
I love babies.
Thanks, Jamise. So as I pointed out before, SharePoint in 2010 and Fast Search for SharePoint allow us to create custom refiners. Those are the drill downs that we saw on the left-hand side of the screen. Customers love it because you can use it for all sorts of different types of properties, and they may speak directly to the type of business they do. Very helpful, and a lot of times they go crazy and kind of want to add a lot of them. And when you do add a lot of them with the out-of-the-box template, a lot of those are going to end up being below the fold. And if you don't know what that means, I'll show you in a second. So the solution is we're going to create expandable, collapsible refiners. So nothing mind-blowing, just a little thing that I have ready to go when I get on the ground at a customer. Here's what we'll need: scissors, paste, and glue. Oh, I went a little crazy with my baby theme. What we actually need is XSLT, some JavaScript, and some CSS. So this is what I meant by below the fold. Here we've got 1, 2, 3. I think we have 5 refiners configured for this page, and only 3 of them are displayed until the user actually scrolls down. So in my mind, we have this capability to add these custom refiners, but there's sort of you quickly reach a point of diminishing returns because you won't even see many of them unless the user decides to scroll down the page. So my solution for that looks something like this, right? So I've collapsed all of the refiners and added some dynamic interaction where you can open and close them. Again, nothing mind-blowing, but a very cool, lightweight little solution that's really nice to have at the ready. I would say I see customers wanting something like this in about 90% of the implementations I do. So how to do it? The first thing we do is to edit the refiner panel web part. So if we didn't know already, this panel over here is just a web part that you can edit like any other web part. And when you edit it, one of the things that you're able to do is to access the XSLT and edit it. Just a quick point, make sure that you uncheck this little box, because if you don't, it's going to use the default XSLT, and you'll make all your changes and then scratch your head when you save the page and nothing has changed. So the 2 things that I do in the XSLT is, one, I do a search for this style, this class called MS Search Ref category name. And what that refers to is these guys up here, each of these top-level names. And what I've done is just added a little on-click event. You can see it's barely 1 line of code, this next.toggle. The second thing I do is I wrap all of the details of the refiners, all of the values, in a new custom div called My Refiner Details. That's all the coding, XSLT coding you have to do. The next thing I do is just add a couple of styles to make it look cool. The search ref category name that I just talked about, I just gave it a background color and made the cursor a pointer so it looks like a button. And then the refiner details, I just set to display equals none. Again, barely any code, 2 little styles. The last thing that you have to do, and this is the most complex, and you can see it's not very complex, is I just need some code so that when I reload the page, the refiners that have already been selected know to stay open. Does that make sense? So if I didn't have this bit of code in here, if a user expanded a refiner and then did another search, it would close back up. And so I want, if it's been selected, I want it to be open. So that's the biggest challenge, is keeping the active refiners open. It's not a challenge, and I can give you the code for it. But that was really the biggest deal. And then if you want to take it one step further for extra credit, go ahead and do the same thing for your federated results as well. So you can see I've taken the federated Internet Business Week results, and I've just given it a little expand collapse. So solution number 2 is changing the sort by order. So again, SharePoint in 2010 does not provide a way to control the order of the sort by dropdown. It's a that I would call a very obvious gap. It's a weird thing. And strangely, when the first time I came across it, I asked some questions on the DL and a lot of experts, and for some reason nobody had really come across it. Either their users didn't care, or maybe people weren't using sortable properties very often. But anyway, so I had to come up with a solution on my own, and what I did was just created a script to reorder those dropdowns. Not the sexiest thing in the world, but it was necessary. And all you'll need for this one is a little bit of jQuery. So this is what I'm talking about. This is the problem. You can see we've got relevance, which is our default rank profile. And then we have document name, author, and date modified. And where that order comes from to our users is a total mystery. And I think it's actually just the order in which the properties are added to the system. And so the after picture is just, I chose to sort them in alphabetical order. So this is how you do it. And just a kind of a general note is I'm showing you a bunch of JavaScript and stuff. You can get this on the page however you want to. You can the kind of 3 or 4 ways that I usually tend to do this is either drop it in a content editor web part and just stick it on the page. And that's if the code, I just want it localized to that page. If I want it for maybe for all of my search results page, then I'll put it in the page layout. If I need it for the whole farm, I might put it in the master page. And I guess sort of a sub option to the content editor web part would be to upload it as maybe a text file and then just link that to your content editor web part, which is maybe a little more clean way to do it. So anyway, the sort of the secret sauce in this reordering of the drop-down list is this right here. So all this stuff is basically just finding the right parameter and the right drop-down, but then this does the resorting, right? And this is to be totally honest, something I found from the internet and just copied and pasted this bit, and then I just had to add a few other little things. A quick tip is to make sure you target the correct drop-down. And I will tell you a funny story about doing this. When the first time I did this, I tested it, worked perfectly, showed it to the client, everybody loved it. Great. Implemented it, pushed it out to their farm. And then the first time that I edited the page, I went to edit a different web part. I think it was the core results web part. And when I went to select something from one of the drop-downs in the web part configuration area, all of my drop-down lists were empty. And I totally panicked. And I went looking in their logs, and I thought, oh my God, we've lost connection to your SQL server. Something's corrupt. Something horrible has happened. And I'm digging through their SharePoint logs, and a lot of times if you go looking into somebody's SharePoint logs for the first time and aren't familiar with what kind of errors they see on a daily basis, it can be startling because there were a lot of errors. And I'm going down this path, and eventually I click on my sort by dropdown, and I realize that every dropdown value on the entire page has been added to my dropdown list, and I felt like a big idiot. So don't be like me. Be careful with your selectors. And so for extra credit, go ahead and offer your users to do alphabetical order, which is what I did in this case, or go ahead and let them do a custom order as well. And the way you might want to do that is to create a custom, it's just like a SharePoint list somewhere where you store the order, and then you read that and then apply it on the page. Am I okay on time, Jamise?
Yes, you are. It's 1 o'clock, and you're doing fine.
Okay. Okay, so here's so that was the category. That's the filling the gaps, the problem solvers. The next one is frequent requests that I see. So this is something I've seen come up a number of times. Users have trouble determining which refiners they've already selected. And so the solution is to create a breadcrumb to give a visual indicator as to which refiners have been selected. And what you'll need for this one is jQuery, CSS, and a content editor web part. I should just point out that if you use the expanding collapsing, let's see it. The expanding collapsing, it's actually not hard to tell which are selected, and you do have a very good visual indicator. But if you're not going with something like that, then this breadcrumb solution might be good for you. So let's see some before and after. So in this case, I think I have the result type is refined by text. But it's a little difficult at first glance to tell which one is selected. You can see there's a little outline around it, but it's a little tough. So what I did was I added this breadcrumb along the top. So we have active refiners, and I've selected text, and I've selected, oh, modified date. See, I didn't even notice it. And believe it or not, this actually comes up a lot. And I have this actually applied at some pretty big enterprise companies. You know, when this had come up, I think a long time ago, we looked at it, and we were really kind of, I was struggling to find a great way to provide this and without doing some really heavy programming. And I've had a little epiphany at some point and did it, you know, one weekend night and just banged it out in, you know, an hour or something. And what I'm really doing is, when the way Microsoft has this coded is that if something is selected, it gets a distinct style called selected versus these other ones which are unselected. So I thought, hey, I can just use jQuery or something to iterate over the DOM and look for all of the ones that are selected, right? So you can see here's my code, and what I'm doing is saying, hey, if this element is of this style, which is called selected, then that's one of our guys. And so I create a, you know, just a tiny little bit of HTML just to show what's being selected. And then to get rid of it, I put this little X, and what I really did was I stole the HTML for this little link right here that Microsoft already provided. Any result type, that means don't filter by result type anymore. So that works as a little X as well, right? I can get rid of it. And it works quite nicely. Little quick tip is to make sure that you target the correct UL. So the way this works is that any of your refiners that are, unfortunately, I don't have that. Sorry. Any of your refiners that have a Show More button at the bottom, when you click that Show More, it's actually showing a different UL. A UL, in case you don't know, is an unordered list. It's just a container for, you know, like a sort of bulleted type of list in HTML. And when you click Show More, that's a different UL than it is before you click Show More. And so you just have to make sure you're targeting the right UL. That's really the biggest challenge there. This is a really simple solution. This is another big one. This comes up in almost, feels like, if not every implementation, at least every one where we're crawling file shares. And it's that users want a friendly name instead of what's returned by the search engine. And this usually comes up in the sites refiner. And so the solution is to rewrite the refiner, you know, at the presentation layer based on a mapping table. And what you'll need here is to create a custom SharePoint list. We're going to use some ECMA script and a little jQuery. So here's an example of the issue. In our case, our server name for what we crawled here is called TrickyMel01. And the users don't know what that is. They call this thing TrickyNet. And so they don't know what that is. Same with this, TrickyMel01, same server, different port. This is actually a document management application. Again, they don't know what that is. So instead, we're going to rewrite these at the presentation layer, and we've rewritten them to the friendly names, TrickyNet and DocPortal. In the way that we do this, so these, I could probably give better examples. Where I see this come up the most is on file shares, because file shares can have some really wacky names, and maybe when they've created aliases for the file shares themselves, so how they appear in people's Windows Explorer, maybe it looks different. And then when you crawl it, this is what you get. And there's different ways to approach that problem, but this is, again, for this type of solution, this lightweight toolkit, this comes in really handy. So how to do it? The first is we create a custom SharePoint list, anywhere you want. And what I did was I store the original value over here. So these are our server names, addresses. And then I write the friendly name over here. And then this is some cool client-side object model stuff. Now, for those of you who aren't developers, you've probably heard people talk about the new APIs for SharePoint and specifically the client-side object model. And I would just say don't be scared of this stuff. It's really not hard. And the other thing is there is tons of information on there. There's a lot of examples on the internet that you can use and drop in your own code. And I don't exactly remember, but I would wager that I probably stole half this code from one of those examples. And just quickly, you can see what we're doing here is we're basically just getting our custom list. We're grabbing the columns that we want in this view using a little bit of camel. And then we're saving those items into an array, and basically saving them into memory because we're going to use them later. And then the next little bit of code is finding those friendly names, and for each of them, we're rewriting the values. Right? Not a big deal. It looks scarier than it is, and again, I can provide this code, but also there are a lot of examples out there where you can all but copy and paste and then just change the name of your list, that sort of thing. This same thing, there's sort of a recurring theme here. Make sure you're targeting the right UL. Oh, and here's where I had the examples that I was looking for before. So when the refiner first loads, you have this show more button if there are more to show. And this is one UL. And then once you click it, you get this thing that says show fewer. This is a different UL. So if you actually look at the HTML in a refiner panel, each of these values are written twice. So you need to make sure you're hitting both of them or the right one or whatever. So this is a search results details pop-up. So this is a request I get a lot because both Bing and Google have something like this. So when they mouse over the result, they want to maybe get a little pop-up that shows some more details, right? The solution is to customize your results with output, your XSLT for your results with some dynamic interaction for your on-hover. And what you need is some jQuery, you need to edit your XSLT, definitely some CSS, and if you want to add some extra images the way I have in my example, you'll need those. So this is what I'm talking about. The Google example, I did a search for SharePoint, and we get Paul Galvin's happy face up here for some reason. But when the user mouses over this little button, they get this detailed pop-out pane, and they get a little preview and some more information about this particular result. Users are very used to this, and so I do get requests for it. So here's an example of a SharePoint site that I customized. This is Fast Search for SharePoint, and I'll give a little shout out. In this case, I'm using BA Insights Preview generator. This is actually a kind of behind the scenes. They have a preview for their search results, but they also provide an API to create these little thumbnails. And so I've added that into my pop-up pane. But you can see it adds a kind of cool effect, and users really like it. Even if it doesn't provide that much value, it definitely provides a wow factor, and users just like it a lot. And in my case, I added a bunch of extra images and stuff like that too. I'm not going to go too deep on how to do that one in this talk because we're running out of time. But I'll just talk quickly about a few more things and try to wrap up here quickly. This one really not a huge amount of value, but just a little wow factor. Everybody loves the Bing home pages. I know that I certainly do, and I really am kind of blown away every day by the amazing pictures that they show on their default search pages. And users like it, and so it's a request I get sometimes. And so the solution is just to customize. Oh, I have the wrong thing there. Sorry about that. But I just customized that default page to create an image, a rotating image on that page. And what we'll need is JavaScript, which you will really just only have to edit because somebody else is going to provide it, and some CSS and some HTML. So this is a familiar site. It's a the Bing homepage, and like I said, this is the inspiration for a lot of requests that I get. And here's an example of a site that I customized to look very similar. This is a SharePoint search site. And these images will, for each browser session, they'll actually come up randomly. They have a library full of these images. And so they wanted it for, each one would last for one browser session, right? And it looks great. You know, it's not a big deal, not that exciting, but it really does, I think, have a huge impact for the very little effort it takes to do it. So here's how we do it. I completely stole some code, and if you guys are familiar with Christoph Humbert, he provides, if you're not familiar with him, you need to go find him because he provides a lot of just this type of solution. It's all client-side, no managed code. You can, he has some tools that, and I'll show you in a minute how this one's generated, but he has a whole set of controls that you can basically just download and use, and they're amazing. He's an amazing guy. So this is his new website. It used to be Path to SharePoint. This one is User Managed Solution, and I chose his little image rotator right here. And he's got a little form that I fill out, and I put the path to my images library, and I choose that, hey, I want the original picture size, and this is the height I want, and all this kind of stuff. And when you click Save, it just creates a bunch of code for you. This is what it outputted. And if you just drop this on your site, you will have a little web part with an image rotator in it. And so what I wanted to do was repurpose his solution to create my rotating images for my homepage. And it's incredibly easy to do. Literally, this whole thing probably took me 45 minutes. In his web part, you can see he just puts a div at the top. It's called IR container, and he's adding his dynamic image right in the web part itself. So all I did was removed that, and I stuck it in my page layout for my, I think it's search.aspx. And I positioned it in the right place with my CSS, and bang, I had my, I had this look. And each time the page loaded, it would rotate a new image for me. And really came in way under budget on that one because what I had originally scoped out was a little more involved. So here's the extra credit that you can do. What I was saying is that every time the page reloaded, you would get a new image. And really, for a site like the one we were looking at here with all these different tabs, every time they clicked a new tab, they'd get a new image. And I think I was giving people seizures. So really, for extra credit, what you're going to want to do is keep the same image through the browser session. And that's a little more advanced. You're either going to do that by storing it in a cookie, you're going to store it in a session, or you can try to throw something into the query string. I chose to go with a cookie, and it was very easy. It maybe added another hour onto that development cost. Jimmy, I'm running out of time here, right?
Yeah, this might be a good time to start closing.
Okay, just real quick, extra credit. These are just other types of things, just some ideas that you might want to think about for your search centers. Create some actionable actions that users can do on their search results. So that's great. SharePoint provides a lot of power to return the right document. Okay, what's the next step? What does the user want to do with it? Do we want to kick off a workflow? Do you want to email it to somebody? Do you want to do something? Think about that kind of thing. And this is just a little example where I have, a download button, and I have this button where you can see a preview. You can go to the original folder. Here I'm just displaying some duplicates, but I could add an email link on here, kick off a workflow, all sorts of things, right? Definitely something that your users will appreciate big time. Here's a cool idea, and I'm going to get more into this on my talk next week, is provide a landing page for frequent queries. So here's an online example. At Macy's, I went and typed the word luggage into the search engine and hit go. And I didn't get a list of suitcases. I got this landing page. They said, you know what, I know what this guy's looking for. And more important perhaps is I know what I want to show him. I'm not going to show him a list of results. I'm going to show him the sales and this and that. You can do the same thing in your SharePoint environment. If somebody searches for quarterly reports, hey, we've got a whole page full of quarterly reports here, categorized, filtered, all this stuff, and information you want your users to see. And just real quick, by the way, this is the only picture that this kid actually belongs to me. The last is just here's a bunch of resources for this type of stuff. Michael Svensson is a great search developer. Leo Souza was my trainer at FAST University. Christoph I mentioned. Jan Thielens, Miles Kehoe has some great stuff to say about search. Natalia, obviously. Definitely Laura should be on here as well because she does a lot of these sort of no-code or non-managed code solutions. So we're probably out of time for questions. It's up to you, Jamise, if you want to take some. But feel free to reach out and ask me any questions. And you guys need to attend this conference next week. It's going to be great. And you should contact Jamise because I think she has a special link or something she can share. And that is it.
That's true. You can contact me if you're in the area and you want to join us at the Great Technology Conference happening next Thursday. Also, I believe it was Bobby. He wanted to know if you'll be providing these slides for the group later.
Yeah, I can provide these slides.
Yay. All right. Good. Are there any other questions? Okay, wait. I think I see one coming through. Oh, no, just a comment. It's a really good presentation, and I have to agree with Daniel. That was very informative, and you put a lot together for only a short presentation. So thanks a lot, Paul.
Sure, no problem.
Any other questions before we move on from Paul? And just want to let you know, Paul is very active. And a lot of times when, even if he's not on Shop Talk, I can get to him and have him answer questions. So if maybe you don't have any right now, or maybe if you look at his presentation later, you'll have some. You can always send them to me, and I'll get them to Paul. So no pressure about having questions right now. So Paul, I'm going to take over presenter rights, okay?
Sure.
Thanks again. Thank you so much, Paul. I really, really appreciate that presentation.
Thanks for having me, guys.
We might have one other question. Let me see here. Who's that? Okay, yes, we do. It says, can we use these techniques with some of the out-of-box search web parts?
Absolutely. And that's really what I was doing. You know, there were a couple of cases where I was editing the out-of-box search web, but all of this code is designed specifically for that to interact with the out-of-the-box web parts. And if they need more information about sort of where the road actually hits the pavement, you know, how do you actually wire these things up in a little more detail, I'm happy to provide some more information. And actually, if you hit my blog, a couple of these solutions are outlined in a lot more detail.
And we had another question I think I missed, and it was, can you please share with us how to configure related search? Is that SharePoint Server 2010 or FAST?
That, you know what, I can't remember. I think it's both related search, and it's just an out of the, you know what, let me get back to you on that.
Okay, I have that question logged, so what I'll do is, when you mean get back to us on that, you mean in an email later or later on today?
No, I'll follow up with you later.
Okay.
I have to remember if that's a custom thing or if that's a. I think I was getting mixed up with similar search and related search may be actually a custom thing that BA Insight had provided. I just got to double check.
Okay, I have that question logged, so I'll get in contact with you, Bobby, with that answer and with the group when I send out the updates for this week. So I don't think there are any more questions in terms of Paul's presentation. Let me just double check and make sure about that. Okay, so we have some questions that were logged in for the panel for this week. So let's try to see if we can fit in as many as possible. The first was coming from Cindy, and she has 3 quick questions, and I think they're probably like real short answers. Let me see if Cindy's still here. Oof. Cindy, yeah, she is. I'm going to unmute Cindy just in case she wants to add anything. But the first, Cindy, are you there?
I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yes, I hear you.
Okay.
I have your questions up on the screen. Can you see them?
Yes.
All right, so please address the panel and the group and let us know your questions.
Well, what we had done is we have a site that's been built on SharePoint 2007, And now we have a request to use InfoPath 2010 because it has more, more complexity, and we're able to do more things in the InfoPath form in 2010. So now we need to figure out, can we use that InfoPath 2010 form and pull information from a 2007 server? And can we do it client side?
That's a good question. I think that in general, it's because it's a whole different farm. This is Laura, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
I think that you're not going to be able to go cross-farm like that, because even when you want to go to like a different site collection or a different web app within the same 2010 environment, you'd have to do like a make an administrator approved template and use like a common, like a data connection file and all that kind of stuff. But I don't know how the communication would work across to another environment. Is anybody else? What kind of data is still in 2007 that?
Well, the issue that we're running into is an entire site has been built on 2007, and it's really sophisticated, and it has a lot of code, and we can't move it right now. We just can't pick it up and move it into 2010. So we were trying to make it work right now across the environments. But we kind of thought the same thing, that it was not going to be easy. we couldn't do it.
Yeah, I mean, it would definitely involve like getting a developer involved in, even if it's even possible, because you're going to have authentication issues, and maybe like some sort of custom data connection, data string, or
Again, well, that is into the second question, because one of the reasons why we went to InfoPath 2010 because when we're trying to pull in, there's drop-down values, but there are drop-down values in the list that are checkboxes. And for whatever reason, it would not pull in values in those checkboxes in 2007.
path form that has checkboxes for multiple selection?
No, we have the checkboxes. The list already exists. There's a checkbox selection, but
it's a list, but it's not a form, right? Or which one is it?
Both. We have a list already created. It has some drop downs that are checkboxes. Then when we're trying to create a new form that's going to be capturing information and backfilling what's already there, we need it to go, the InfoPath needs to be able to pick up those fields that have checkbox values in them. And right now it's not recognizing those fields. It won't pull them in.
Oh, when you try to create the data connection, it's not even giving you that as an option? Yeah. That sounds familiar. You'd have to do some sort of funky workaround for that. You'd have to yeah, that's just one of those field types that it's not going to give you.
But is that because it's storing the data with the ID semicolon hashtag?
Yeah.
The value? Yeah.
Yeah.
The way I've done it in the past, I'll drop back to my default answer to possibly both of these, but I don't know if it will apply to you. Is I like to pull that stuff out into a SQL table with SSIS, and you can get rid of that stuff along the way. So that's another approach if that's available to you.
Or maybe do something funky like create like an extra, just a text field in that same list and have a workflow that just copies whatever's in that checkbox field over to just a regular text field every time the item's edited. So then you'd have like a big long string of stuff with semicolons in between it. Mm-hmm. But at least you'd have it in a text field, and maybe you could do something with it from there. It's still going to be hard to work with, though.
Yeah, and the text is fine because all we're doing is we're backfilling the information that already exists in the list. So when they open the form to say I want to make a modification, they're not actually editing it. We're just displaying the value.
Oh.
Shankar is, I think he's on mute. He's the developer. He's actually the developer for this. And he just asked a question: how to pull values in query string into InfoPath form.
I had muted Shankar.
Yeah, you would Well, in the 2007 or 2010?
Hello, it's in 2007. Like, I'm sorry, please go ahead.
Well, in 2010, you could just stick the InfoPath form web part on a page and just have it receive parameters, and it could receive the query string parameter from the page it's on. But in 2007, that's something you'd actually have to go into the code of the InfoPath form to do to make it receive query strings, and I have no idea how developers do that. It's a developer thing.
But no, if you're going to add the query string parameter, like query string web part, it can just pull only one value. For instance, if I want to pull values like 2 or 3 values, how do we do that?
Mm-hmm. Oh, well, you're not going to be able to pull, you're right, it's got a limit of 1, but you're not going to be able to pull multiple values from different web parts. But I have been able to, like if you open up that in 2010 and with that web part, if you open up that page that you have your InfoPath form web part on in SharePoint Designer and you create the web part connections from there, then that one web part connection from one list to your InfoPath form, then you'll be able to choose multiple fields mapping to multiple parameters. But otherwise, if you just, it is not going to let you do that with sending multiple values from other web parts in to multiple parameters. So what we've done, Jennifer and I have done in situations like that, was we like sort of structured the syntax of the query string that we're sending to InfoPath a certain way so that when the parameter arrives in InfoPath, once the value exists, then we're sort of parsing it out and saying, you know, using like a substring or something like that to get the pieces out of it and put those pieces in different fields. Does that make sense?
Yeah, yes, okay, thank you. But is there a way, can you do that directly inside the InfoPath instead of using a query string web part and the InfoPath form web part? Can you do that directly inside the InfoPath 2010? Like
yeah, the thing I just described is
function.
the thing I just described is a 2010.
Yeah, but you said like we need to use the query string web part and the form web part. What I'm asking is, can we do that without using query string web part? Can we just add some functions or formulas inside the InfoPath where you just create a rule and set the value inside a control inside the InfoPath? Can you do that?
I don't think so.
Okay. 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 Thanks a lot.
Okay.
There was a comment from Sergey that came in earlier. I don't know if you saw that, Laura and John, but it said, can we utilize the BCS to solve this? Pull the data from BCS and reuse in InfoPath? Does that make any sense to you?
Not if the data's in SharePoint.
Okay.
Yeah, BCS is really nice and easy and clean connecting to SQL data or something, but
yeah.
You can't really get inside a SharePoint database and get stuff like that.
I suppose I shouldn't say can't, but I would say wouldn't want to.
Not recommended.
Yeah, I guess through the web service you could probably wire something up, but by then you've got a better solution. I mean, yeah. If it was me, I'd just take SSIS, stick it in a SQL database, and look it up from there.
Okay. All right. It's 1:30. I'm so sad that it's already 1:30. Because we actually have a stream of questions.
Reese, are you mad at me?
A little. No, I'm just kidding. No, I think that it was very useful what you provided. That happens sometimes. You run out of time.
Well, hey, real quick for number 3, you could go into the control properties and go to the advanced tab and add some text in there.
Got it. Yeah, got it.
Okay.
Excellent. So I wanted to just let the people know who I want to show you that it's Russell, Isaac, and Isabella. Please don't feel slighted. I'm going to send these questions over to the panel, and if there's anything that we can answer while offline, I'll contact you. And if not, you know, we will reconvene in 2 weeks. But just please don't feel slighted. We will try to answer your questions. I love our panel, and they're very active in the community, and I want to thank them for joining us today. And just to let you know, once again, those of you who may have came on late, SharePoint Shop Talk is canceled for next week, but we will be back online on April 12th. Am I right in saying that? I can't look at my calendar when I'm on GoToMeeting. But yeah, I believe next week is April 5th, and then the following week will be April 12th. So we'll be back online April 12th. So thanks, everyone. Any last words, Paul?
Sorry, everybody's mad at me.
I'm not mad.
You
You guys are great.
Thanks for having me, and definitely reach out with any questions, and definitely come to the conference next week. It's going to be great.
I wish.
And reach out for my book.
All right, and I'm going to, like I said, send a follow-up for today's sessions with all the links that we talked about today. Oh, and please, everybody say goodbye to Chris, not for good, but just for being a regular panel for every week. He's very good about being on almost every single week. So he's taking a well-deserved vacation. So everyone say hello and goodbye to Chris for a little while, but we will be in contact with him, and all his information will be made on SharePointShopTalk.com. And that's it. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye, everybody.
Oh, Laura, have
Bye.
a safe trip in San Antonio next week. Be careful.
Thanks.
All right. Bye, guys.